Ah, hello and welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help. I'm James Lott Jr., the Lott in that, and the guy waving to you is my buddy. He's been on the show before many times. I had to bring him back, Phil Svitek. Hi, Phil.
Hello. I'm coming to you from a new location. I figured I'd switch it up.
I know the same fire locations here in Inglewood, same place I'm always at. But I know I saw the greenery outside your window. Everybody knows I'm a plant and forest person. So, and she got plants. I see she got plants in there too, flowers and stuff.
Yeah, we got some stuff.
Yeah. So Phil Svitek is a coach like I am, and we do all kinds of. We do filmmakers, all kinds of stuff. You know, we're multi-hyphenates. And we decided to talk again because on this show we talk about mindset and mental health and things. And Phil and I talk all the time, all kinds of stuff. And we, use ourselves, but we also come up with ideas. So we decided to have one of our conversations with you. And this one, I'm kind of like talking about victimhood, kind of what that means. And I'm gonna say a phrase first that I learned years ago that changed my whole life. Began the process by Brene Brown. People know this phrase. I've done shows on this. That the definition of forgiveness, her definition was, the definition of forgiveness is giving up that the past could be any different. That the hope that the past could be any different. So that was like, I'll call it the click. It clicked for me because I saw myself as a victim, even though I saw myself as a survivor too, kind of a weird thing. But the thing that changed, and I want to start this off with you and ask this question to you. So for me, I saw myself as a survivor. I survived everything that was done to me. That's where it came from. So I learned through therapy and other life stuff that that's the tricky part, though, what you perceive as being done to you, which becomes your victims. So my first question to you is, when you hear the word victim, when you hear that word, what comes up for you?
So I want to be clear on something right off the bat. I think, there's like being a victim of egregious crimes, let's say like rape, assault and things like that. And for the most part, I'm going to focus more on victimhood that we put ourselves in mentally.
Exactly.
And so if at any point, now the good news is what I will say applies to both, but I'm kind of going to be a little bit more humorous about it in that sense, because a lot of, I want to make this as specific as possible. And in that sense, a lot of the people that you and I talk to are, let's say, artists, at least from me. I know you talk to artists as well.
Yes, I do.
And they put themselves in their own kind of victim box, right? And so in that sense, I can be a little bit more lighthearted about it, but I will say the tactics do apply to someone who has suffered in that sense. And, kind of coming from that, there's Byron Katie, right? So you mentioned Brene Brown. For me, it's Byron Katie. And she has this idea, like she did an interview, a very famous one with Oprah. And Oprah was like, okay, but what if someone punches you or like hits you? And then she's like, well, then it's over. What if they do it again? Well, then it's over again. And she says, like, listen, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm moving out of the room if I can. Like, I'm doing what I can to get out of the situation. I want to be hit, but it's over, right? And so I think too often we carry that with ourselves. And I think a good place to start, Jay Shetty is the one who put this in my mind, was there's a difference between being, being a victim and victimhood, in the sense that, if something terrible happens to you in your life, you use it as a purpose for goodness, right? So it could be two ways. And two seems to be the magic number here.
I know for you, it's the duality of stuff, I guess. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, I was talking to someone who just broke up, and, I said, you got to be kinder to yourself and move on from this, right? So set a standard for yourself of people you are no longer willing to date, because that's using that as purposeful. Other people, let's say, like if someone survived cancer or something like that, they use their life to educate about cancer and, have a charity and so forth, right? So it's when you put that pain and you're like, I don't want this for anybody else, and I will do what I can to prevent it for others.
Yeah, the thing, was a really good point. And yes, we're kind of talking on a more general sense of not so much the heavy stuff, but again, I agree with you, can apply it. Because I'm a person who knows a victim of rape, actually. So I do know, I put some of these same principles in there, but as we're talking about relationships, creativity, Even just regular life stuff like jobs, living arrangements, you know, family members. I'm talking about lighter stuff, but just kind of like the things that's going on in our lives. You said something that totally, you know, reminds me of that. It's that you become, what happens to you becomes your identity.
Mm-hmm.
It just suddenly becomes your thing. Well, I always pick the same people. I just can't help it. I just always pick the same people. You know, poor me. I can't get a man, or I can't get a woman. So I always pick the same. I date them, and they all say I'm just not strong enough for them, or they always seem to cheat on me. You know, I feel like that's where this applies. It's kind of like, well, it happened. Don't live in it. You know, two people come. Well, two people. Now I'm doing it. It does take two people in a relationship. It takes two people for anything. Most parts. So I kind of go, the victimhood becomes part of your shield and becomes part of your identity for everything.
Yeah.
You can say, well, that's happened again because I seem to be attracted to the same type of girl every time, and I don't know why. Well, why does this keep happening to me? And I guess I'm a nice guy. I don't know why. You know, we hear those same things all the time. Or I just wish Hollywood would notice me. Like, I do all this work, and I just, you know, I'm talented. I mean, they should just notice me, and I should just be, you know, I should be on television already and doing what, you know, so and so does. You're like, well, I mean, should you? I always get a little smart ass sometimes. People come like, I'm like, I mean, so why you? You know, it's like, in a sense, like, anybody. Why anybody? I mean, it's kind of like that kind of thing. I feel like.
Well, also it's a very myopic way of looking at it in a lot of ways. You know, I mean, the most cliche thing of all is like, oh, everyone's high school year sucked. It's like, is that really true? Because, you know, whatever story you've ingrained in yourself, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I'm sure I would love to hear your perspective on this, but like years removed from high school, you kind of see where everyone went. You start to reform relationships and you talk about things, and you're like, they see you in a different light, and you're like, oh, I always thought you know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Oh, I thought I was a loser. And it's like, no, you were doing some pretty cool stuff. And I'm trying to, in my mind, revisit those moments where, you know, I had a singular memory of certain events and look at it from like, oh, but I also got to do X, Y, and Z. So like, you know, I might not have been like the most popular kid, but I was doing some cool stuff and I had some cool friends. You know?
You mentioned high school. So I graduated high school 33 years ago. And it's funny you said, you know, milestone reunions have come up since then. And you're right. It has been interesting to find people who now follow me on Facebook or have gone to reunions and go, oh, you're on television. Oh, you do this. We always thought you were doing that. Really? I mean, I viewed myself very differently back then. I wasn't in drama club. I had a brother who did all that. I didn't do that. I was just I kind of didn't care for school that much. I got through it. I was smart, whatever. But they all were like, no, we're not surprised you're doing it. Everybody knew you, James. You were so popular. Like, what? I mean, like, so you're right. It's weird how you don't. My narrative was totally different than what I guess some people. You always had the hair, James. You always had lots of hair in that members only jacket. This was the 80s. And I was like, I did it. And I saw the yearbook, and I was in the yearbook like 20 times. I'm like, I guess I was. Like, I really didn't think about it that way. And you're right. Folks see you a different way, and we see ourselves. And that is and now as I'm getting older and you start getting a little more nostalgic and you start to come back at things like, oh, okay, well, I guess high school wasn't as bad. Yes, everybody's angsty, you know, when they're younger. I mean, I have kids too. So that's another perspective too, to have raised children who are now grown too with their own children. I'm saying, oh yeah, I went through this. Oh, she gave me your first I hate you. I remember when you told me you hated me the first time. It was just so wonderful. We laugh and joke about it. But it's like, it's all these rites of passage that I'm like, so it wasn't that bad. I'm actually laughing more now about my junior high school years than I did maybe say 10 years ago. How about you? What was it for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I obviously I had a lot of angst, and I was a pretty angry kid, and you know, Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down was like my soundtrack, and whatever else. But you know, I, at the end of the day, like, I might not have been the popular, but like, you know, I was doing a lot of cool movies, and like, in some sense, I like had this vortex where like people were like, "Hey, could I be in your movie?" And it was like my superpower. I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And you know, I was. And then like even the school got on board to the point like I could bring like fake guns, and we had like a mini like World War, you know, after school, and we were filming it. It was great.
Well, I'll tell you, I had victimhood on me that I was, for years, I kept saying, well, I clawed my way out of Inglewood. I clawed my way out of something. That was a big, I put that on me. And now, I look back, yeah, there was some tough, trust me. I grew up back then, there was gangs, there was some tough times. But I did have a lot of fun too, actually. There was a lot of stuff that I got away with, thank God, no social media, that me and my brother and sister, I got away with back then that actually taught me about life. That really, so I get to switch. So it's funny you brought that up, the high school thing. It's a major thing, I guess. That really made me go, well, it wasn't that, it was bad at times, but it wasn't that bad. I'm not a victim of being in Inglewood. I hated being in Inglewood. Oh, I'm not a victim of Inglewood. It was what it was. Like I said, it's over. Like she said, it's over. And it's just now part of I found a place for it in my life now. There's a place for it that I can go to and extract what I need from it in any situation.
Yeah. But I think we need to get past the idea of like overcoming something, like getting to a new thing. And like, it speaks to that being present in the moment. And also going back to the idea of like, this idea that you deserve something. Let's say someone deserves to be on TV. One thing, like if I look back on everything, I was always very solution oriented. At least I tried to be. I was like, okay, what can I do in this situation? You look at today's politics, everyone's complaining. It's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? I might not be able to change the entire thing, but like sitting and throwing shit at the wall is not going to really do much good for anybody.
I agree.
So, what are you going to do?
I'm the same way. We know each other 6 years at this point. I'm a solution based. I'm a person just like, I'm a doer. I'm just like, okay, I'll do this. I was always that way. I was always thinking about the womb, putting out fires basically as a kid. I always took care of business. I was one of those kind of kids who would, in school, oh, they need to call my mother. I'll go to the principal's office myself and tell her what went on. I was one of those kind of, you imagine little James Lott Jr. going to the office, talking to the principal. I had no shame, apparently. I was like, well, you always took care of everything. I had to worry about it. So I was always kind of person who, but still though, growing up, I thought I was still a victim of that school. I was a victim of those classmates, of a victim. This is what's making me who I am. But not, and I didn't think about it in a good way. I thought about it in a bad way. Like, I have to overcome all of this to be full James Lott Jr. And you're right. You don't have to go that route. You don't have to do that. There's not, there really is nothing to overcome. It's just, I look at it as all just a series of experiences that are there to teach you in life. Life has ups and downs, just has ups and downs. It just does. So we have to get out of that whole victim thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like you could argue that's a driving factor, no different than, let's say, all the things that Michael Jordan made up, real or otherwise, of like this competitive spirit. And it's like, okay, that was a means to an end, but does it necessarily justify it? Because some people would argue that Michael Jordan is a very angry soul. And it's like, I don't think you need that to also be solution oriented, right? This whole like greater opposition in order for you to like be able to overcome something. That doesn't have to be that way. You can be a little bit more level-headed about things.
Well, now that I've been, as I've been meditating for the last 6 months every morning and for an hour. And one of the things that became clear to me is that things aren't done to me. That was a major thing. They're not done to me. They're just that you live life and things come up and they happen. They're things that are happenings. They're not things. They're specifically being done to James Lott Jr. because this is what, for some reason, you got to have this done to you. Like that's not it. It's just I'm living life, and the results of living, results of every step that I take, result in something. I know it's very like almost like Buddhist or whatever. Certain cultures believe that kind of stuff, but I kind of believe that now. Where it's, I'm not kind of, I do believe that now. Where it's like, no, there's no coincidences, there's no luck, there's none of that stuff. It's action, reaction, it's cause and effect. I just completely believe in that now. I know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's similar to like, those familiar with like Joe Dispenza. He's this guy who, he talks about energetic, like he scientifically explores brain energy and energy, you can call it your chi, whatever you want, but he does it scientifically. And when you're just angry, you do have low energy, right? And you're literally omitting low energy. Now, like one of the reasons people love you is because you're always this high energy, right? And in that sense, like quite literally, it is infectious. Like people feel that energy. It's not just you, it reverberates. And so in that sense, the more you come at it from that perspective, the more, at less anger, because anger clouds the mind, more creative you can actually be when you're higher energy. And the easier it is to overcome those problems, as opposed to being like, the glass tipped over again. And this morning, the mailman woke me up and,
But it's so true, Phil. When I'm around people who are enthusiastic about what they're doing, I get excited. Until I get excited. I mean, my clients, okay, so like today, after we're done with this, I'll be going out to an organizing client. And because she's so enthusiastic about getting this garage in order, she has kept me upbeat because she's feeding off my energy. So our energy is totally matching. I mean, you think I'm energetic, she's like 20 years older than I am, and she's amazing. But it made me come home and start looking at one of my rooms going, let's start organizing that room. Like, it really did go, the things I was working with her on, I started working on myself because her energy was so big and was like, yeah, we're getting stuff done. And she's appreciative of what's happening. And she's in the moment every single time we're together. It made me get in the moment and go, I'm going to go mop those floors in the other room and clean out that. And I did, and I felt good. So then my house felt good. So it's very much a chain reaction. I mean, it really, really is. And I'm not around a lot of people who are upbeat like I am. So it's always a challenge for me. But I do find some others, but it can be a challenge. So
well, it's the allegory of the cave, Plato's cave. We go back in the cave to bring out some more people, hopefully. It's true,
No, I've heard that before. I've not heard that. I like that one actually. But yeah, no, I just think it was very interesting. But my thing is always, and people ask, I mentor people in the business like you do. We talk all the time in the business, and I always tell people, I can't afford to be a victim in this business. I just can't. There's certain things that are truths that are in this business, and we all know them. So I know that I have to push forward to keep going. I can't just like go, well, I'm gonna wait for Hollywood to notice me. I'm gonna wait for them to give me that one job that's gonna change my whole life. Which friends who are doing that, people who are doing that. Or I'm waiting for somebody to, I want to write that. I just changed. You write books. I want to write a book. I'm like, we'll write it. I don't know. And we know those two. I just realized for me, I can't sit and live in victimhood in this business. I just can't. I just can't do it. I can't afford to do that if I want to make anything about myself or do anything to get myself ahead. I just have to just do it. And when things happen, yes, I have emotions. I get upset at certain things that happen. That's natural. But then like you, I'm like, okay, well then what do I do? What's next?
Well, to be quite blunt about it, like, who the fuck's gonna notice if you're not doing anything?
Right.
Like, I'm a writer. Okay. Well, what have you written? Once you tell me to write, I can write. Really? Can you? Because I don't think you can. So that's and now the flip side of it, never has it been easier to sort of break free. You know what I mean? I'm at a place in my life. No one's gonna tell me no. I want to write a book. I'm writing a book. Okay, I don't get a publisher. I'll fucking self-publish that thing, right? And no one's going to know the difference. I just made a movie. There's some good news there. I can't quite say yet. But let's say the alternative happened, right? I could literally self-distribute through iTunes, Amazon, and so forth. And then who the hell would know of like, oh, Phil's movie sucked. He didn't get any sort of deal for it. It's like, well, it's on Amazon Prime. What's the difference between someone getting a deal and not getting a deal and being on Amazon Prime or iTunes or whatever? So it's just a matter of perspective. Like in investing, they always talk about minimize the downside. The downside is so minimal. But if no one else picks up your shit, guess what? And especially now, the keys have been handed over. Start your Patreon, start your OnlyFans page, like. And by the way, I'm not saying that to be crude, like in that sense, I don't mean like, put up nude, but I am a big advocate of like all these platforms are there for you to use: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And it's like, how are you going to utilize them? You have a direct connection. You can look at social media platforms as negative and be like, F that, or you can tailor it to fit your desires. And, in that sense, let's take like a Sarah Cooper. I don't know how familiar you are with her, but she's the one who like basically did the TikTok videos mimicking Trump, like lip syncing with Trump. Oh, yeah. And then 3 months later, she's hosting Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I'm not saying the work that she's done as a comedian is the equivalent of 3 months. It's the equivalent journey of, let's say, 5-10 years, but that, she was consistently doing it. And all of a sudden that thing hit and boom, it put her on the radar. But she was doing it and she had the practice of it. And to say like, oh, you can all of a sudden, like, it's not a light switch. Talent to me is a process, and very much so. And to say like, oh, woe is me, and when things come up, that's bullshit victim. That to me is bullshit victim.
I agree. No, everything you said, I totally agree with. I mean, and that's the thing. And I know for me, one of the major things I did this summer was create an online network. That's how me and Phil met years ago.
You didn't even know it.
An online network, and actually it's doing really well. And I'm getting paid. But no, it's interesting. I had to sit because the pandemic did this a lot for a lot of people. Everybody felt like victims at first. I mean, I know everybody. I mean, even I felt for a minute like a victim at first when it first came down. When everything just shut down. I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But it did force me and many others to really look at our strengths. What can we do? What can we not do? And reinvent ourselves a little bit. And the other day I really did sit and I was like, I'm an online network. This is really effing crazy. I have an audio soap opera that did over 10,000 listens.
That's amazing.
Like I didn't do the victim mentality. I didn't stay in victimhood. I just said, okay, gotta do something. Let's try. And like I said, try it out. Why not? I'm not NBC, CBS, or whatever. I'm JLJ Media. So that means something to me and to a few other people. And that's all that counts. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at least I can say I did it and I tried it, and we'll see what the fuck happens, right? And just try it. And then I feel like I have some semblance of control, but I know there's things I can't control either. And it's actually freeing. And that's what I'm on the show before. Sometimes having no control is actually freeing. I'm just gonna put things out there and see where it lands. And some things have pleasantly, like you said, for you, have pleasantly landed well. And some things, whatever, but I still don't regret them, and I don't live in the victimhood of it.
Yeah, I think people just got to flip it, right? So so many people try to control everything but themselves.
Yes.
And
yes.
Just flip it. You control yourself, and then listen. I'm not saying if it works, it works. In the sense of like, you might not get that deal, but you know what? Like you did it. There's a great story. Airbnb. You would think Airbnb would tank because of the pandemic. They're actually doing quite well.
I heard they are too. I thought they would too, and I heard they are.
Well, because early on, literally, they sat down, and I first off, I credit companies that actually listened to their employees, and like they had a roundtable, real discussion, and they were like, okay, what are our strengths, right? So, and by the way, there's a great book called the Startup J Curve, which talks about like when you iterate, instead of looking at your failures, focus on like, okay, even if we failed at something, what was the thing that worked? So in the sense of Airbnb was doing great. Pandemic hits, all of a sudden, no one's traveling, whatever. Like, all right, what are we still doing great? Well, we have experiences. So what kind of experiences can we promote that are, safe for people through our platform? And we're going to focus on that. And they pivoted their business for that time being, at least, and I would still say now even, to highlight that. Because they were like, that's our strength. That's what we can utilize, and we just have to lean into it. And within 8 weeks, they really, literally, like rebuilt the platform to like make that the sole focus.
Yes. Well, organizing, same thing. We all had to get together. Many of us organizers. I'm part of NAPO, National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and we had to kind of sit down and discuss like, what can we do? Because we go in people's homes, their offices. A lot of offices were closed down. Obviously, they closed down right away. People was like, don't go to our home. What's going on? So we came up with COVID solutions and plans, and like I said, now I'm back to organizing again, and it's been safe and wonderful. I get tested, and we do distancing, and there's certain guidelines. But again, we could be victims and just go, well, that's it, business is over, no more industry anymore. I mean, like, and people do that, and people get like that in anything they do, and they do nothing, and they live in victimhood. Where the rest of us say we can be sad and be upset for a minute and get that out. We're human. But then like figure out, well, what do we do? I mean, you can't just lay down and not work. I mean, you got to do something. And so now many of us are getting back to work with our clients who need us, who desperately in America, desperately need us. And we're figuring out ways to do it that are as safe as possible. Any situation that's not safe, we don't do it, get in there. But it's like we just, and so I like that whole thing where you kind of have to, that's a product of not living in victimhood. Airbnb said, we're going to work this out. Organizers said we're going to work this out. Other professions have said we're going to work this out. And I know right now the entertainment industry is slowly working towards that. There are jokes made on Bold and Beautiful to use blow-up dolls for kissing scenes, which I actually really do. It's a trip. I do the after show for it, and we laugh about it. But I get what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
They're trying to bring people their soaps. People like their soaps every day. They want to see their entertainment. So they said, we're going to figure out a way to do this. So yeah, the one actor's way over there and the other actor's way over there in the scene. But it does work on some level. We're getting our soaps every day. Because for a while, for the first time in American history, we had no soaps for like 3 months. It was really strange. So they said, let's not live in victimhood. Let's have smaller crews. Everybody gets something. They're trying to figure this out. And I think that's what you and I were saying about us, you and I just as people. That's why we get along so well, is that we're solution-based doers. We're like, okay, we got to figure it out.
And isn't that the irony? Like whether the soaps or, organizing, like especially like with organizing, I look at it, it's like the need for organizing couldn't have been greater. Like everyone's in their homes and they're like, help, please.
That's what's happening though, Phil. That's what's happening. Seriously. When I just started doing this 3 weeks ago. My clients like James for the last 6 months. We're home now living in our shit, basically. And I don't mean like shit, but like just their stuff. They're like saying now we see in our homes the systems are not working. Normally we're working, we'll do it later. I'm not gonna worry about it. But now we're here trying to set up our home offices. I have a space. It's so cluttered. I have no space to do my self-tapes. When I want to, do it, I did like they're finding out that the way they have it set up doesn't really work. And they probably knew already, but they're so busy not worrying about it because they were working that now they're so grateful to have us back. And you're totally right. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, they're home. And they have time now. They have time to actually do the organizing with me. So you're right. The irony was not lost on any of us. Trust us for the first 3 months of this pandemic. We were just like, we could be busy right now. Like anybody can want us. And virtual organizing has become a big thing. I should mention that. Speaking of pivoting, there's a whole virtual organizing section of now organizing that's happening. I'm not good at that, so I have some professionals I can send you guys to that are really good at that. But that's another way of pivoting. So working it out. So that has happened too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've heard this phrase from other people, but there were some people I was talking to, and they were like literally, they were debating, should I get rid of my apartment? Should I not? And they were very much like, if only we were in a pandemic, I totally know what to do. And I'm like, well, I mean, isn't that, the fact that you thought that things just wouldn't you don't never know what's going to happen. And so this is the situation we're in and you have to deal with it accordingly. And I kept saying ultimately there's no, right or wrong decision. This was back in May. And I was very much I didn't know back in March, I predicted we'd be back to kind of some capacity by June. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we were making fun of May babies for celebrating their birthdays. And
I know, I'm one of those babies. Remember, I couldn't do shit back then.
Well, guess what? We're gonna be doing Christmas solo, but you get what I mean. And so you don't know the right call. And I said, listen, if it saves you money and whatever, do it, and maybe everything will be back to normal by July, at which point, okay, great, you'll have to hunt for an apartment in LA again. I'm sorry, just that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. But you gotta, you could be, and in that sense, you could pull the trigger and get rid of the apartment, and then July have to find an apartment, and be oh, this sucks again. It's yeah, but you didn't know. So why are you gonna be upset with the past you for making the best decision in that moment that you could have? Why are you going backwards?
I agree with that. I had friends who, you're right, they had to go, well, because I know a lot of people, it came down to, okay, if they say I have to pay rent for 3 months, I'm going to owe it at some point. So that's going to make me even worse off later, possibly. So they made decisions now. I think you did the best you could at the time. Again, it's unknown. We don't know and actually, it's a great metaphor for life, though. Even though we think we know what's going to happen in our lives the next 4 or 5 years, we really don't. My mother, was diagnosed with breast cancer a few months ago. And that was a total shock to all of us. We had no idea. And she's doing better now. But it was again, she'd always thought she'd undergo cancer. But you can't predict anything. I had Bell's palsy for a year. I know exactly what it feels like to have my face go paralyzed. You just, one day you're walking down the street, toodaloo, and all of a sudden your life could change in an instant. And that's actually, this pandemic has been a great example of that happening and figuring out what to do. I mean, I have plenty of Lysol wipes and shit. I was good. I was already set up and good because I'm an organizer. we preach this all the time. So always be prepared for stuff. And I think that I just thought this whole pandemic is it's made people really look at themselves in ways they didn't want to look at themselves. That's in the industry. It's not in the industry. It's everyone. They're forced to look at what now. And a lot of folks just kind of skate along and whatever. And then it was like, this was really serious. I mean, not saying nothing's not serious, but this was really serious. It was like, we're really faced with what now? And we can't go the usual routes we usually go for job seeking. Or that all that stuff was done. I mean, it was all just, it was a whole different thing. It was very interesting.
But here's the, I hate the overuse of we're in unprecedented times.
But we're in unprecedented times, Phil. Yeah.
I mean, maybe the combination of therein, sure, but going back to the idea of victimhood, I think part of what is so detrimental about it is if you feel like this sense of isolation, it's just you. And the fact of the matter is, the more you open up, there's books, there's movies, and I love history for this sense. Like, you can look through history, and it's not going to be a one-to-one comparison, but you can draw certain conclusions, contextualize it, and be like, okay, what can I apply to my life? So you can look at the pandemic basically at the start of the 1900s and be like, okay, well, they overcame it, and what are certain things that were done there? The stock market crash, things like, you know what I mean? Like, you can look at and by the way, a pandemic is not, friggin' the Stoics wrote about plagues and so forth, and it's also even funny, this idea, like, even small, like, victimhoods of, like, my apartment is always too noisy. Well, so was Seneca. Seneca was complaining how there was, like, always construction underneath in the damn bathhouse or whatever it was. And it's like, okay, so people have been kind of dealing with this for thousands of years. You're not that special. And I don't know. I'm curious to know, like, it's a weird sense how misery is almost as agreeable as happiness. And so in that sense, like, victimhood becomes this badge of honor of, like, oh, I'm special. In a fucked up way, don't get me wrong, but it's like, ooh, I am a victim, therefore, like, I deserve attention and whatever. And it's like,
Well, I used it for in potential relationships as a testing ground. I went through this, and this. Okay, do you still love me? You still gonna like me? Are you still gonna date me? I mean, I used it proudly as my like a jacket, like a sweater. I wore it on me. I'm now so a point of, like, I went, you think you had it bad? Well, I went through blank, 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 blank. You still like me? You're not going to run away? You're not going to leave me? Like that. I used that when I was younger. I really did because I did go through some stuff, but I used it as like a test. I totally did that. And I had to learn that's not good. That's not, you don't test people, number one. Number two, why are you still using it for that? That's not what it's there for, to be used. It's part of your past. These are things of your past that need to stay there, first of all, but they're just part of you now. They're just part of you. They will inform some of your decisions, but you don't bring them up over and over again to people to use almost against them or at them. I mean, it was just so strange. I did that for a while, so I relate to that. Not anymore. We don't do it anymore. I'm like, oh, it's just not. I like that look. When I started going to therapy, I don't like that I was doing that. I really didn't. I felt a little evil doing that on some level. I'm just like, because again, I thought I was special because I went through this, and this. And I'm not the only person who's had these things happen. I'm not the only black man in America. There's plenty of black men in America who've gone through exactly the same things I have, and worse and better. Like, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's not saying that you're not. Everyone is special. Not saying that, but I'm just saying that we're not any more special than the next person in many ways. We're just not. We all go through the same stuff, basically. There's a lot of sameness. I always put this all the time. We have a lot of sameness as humans, more than difference. I feel. I don't know how you feel about it. I just feel like we do.
I would agree with that, and I think in one way we try to embrace that, and in the other way we try to, like, run from it. And again, it's just switch the two around.
Right.
Embrace the stuff that is good about all of us, and stop running from the things that you fear. Like, that's the stuff that makes you unique. And
the thing is, Phil, we can never run from stuff. We think we're running from stuff, but we never can run from it. You cannot run.
You can't run from you. That's the problem with you. No matter where you go, there you are. No, it's true. It's such a simple, obvious truth. But, like, most of the things that people are running away from is themselves. And it's Oh, I'm sorry. There you are.
No, it's true. No, I'm laughing, but it's true. I mean, I just think you think you can run, you think you can move somewhere, think you do it, you can't. It's always ever present. It's there. Just deal with it, and you can move on. I know it's not, but just do it.
And I think that's the crux of this, right? I'm curious, kind of, it's this idea that I'd rather blame someone else than do that introspective work.
Yes. Well, see, what I said, it's being done to me. It goes back to my whole thing beginning. It's being done to me. So it's not my responsibility. I don't need to take it on. It's just that, well, oh man, I just can't believe that he did this to me again. I always get taken for money from people. I'm always giving. Like, that's the thing. So you don't look at, are you a people pleaser? Are you trying to get something out of them? Like, what's your agenda? Why are you always giving money? Like, you don't want to look at that. You don't look at that. It's better to say they're always taking from me. I'm always giving to them. Not that I'm always giving to them because of blank. You don't look at that. Oh, no.
I'm going to butcher the quote, but there is, it's like a Tim Ferriss quote, like, what are the things that I am complicit in terms of my life?
Yes.
Because obviously, like, and in that sense too, again, it's a fine line between look to the past to kind of get an answer so you can move on. So going back to the idea of my friend, she broke up with somebody and she's literally beating herself up about like, oh, I should have known better. I should have put up boundaries and this and that. It's like, okay, so you didn't, but now make that list so you have standards and you don't allow that to happen again. Simple as that, but to pick yourself up, what's that do?
Does nothing. And I know a lot of folks who are afraid to date because they have been hurt before. They're afraid of their own choices, so they stay frozen.
Well, you know what? My joke is with her, I'm like, you guys broke up 2 years ago, but you're still dating him. Because I mean, the amount of time that like is spent thinking about what this person was an asshole, and I can't believe this happened. It's like you're still dating him. Mentally. Time to move on.
Well, I can talk to you forever, Phil Svitek. So thanks for doing it. This is an ongoing conversation. We'll probably continue talking about this kind of stuff, but we just hope that you out there who are watching and or listening to the podcast, take something away from this. That it's just that you are you. And, we all go through stuff and it's natural. There's ups and downs that happen all the time. But not to live in the victimhood mentality. If you can. I mean, it's not, you need to get help, go get help. Trust me. There are counselors, life coaches, therapists. I mean, all kinds of people you can talk to, pastors, wherever, people, your priest, the temple, whatever, rabbi, talk to anybody you need to talk to help you with this. But I feel like we all need to not live in that world. We need to just, live life, have experiences, and use them to our advantages as we walk through life. I don't feel if you agree with that or not, but I feel like that's.
Yeah, and I want to take the moment. I know we've been kind of a little bit more lighthearted, but to echo what you just said, if I understand, like, if you're really in a dark place of being in the trenches, listen, just take a first step. Like, even go to someone that you trust, and even if it's just you bawling your eyes out trying to get words out, just take that first step. And I promise you, that cliche thing, it does get better. There are, you are not alone in that sense, and so. By you thinking that you're alone, that's the victory that your victimhood has over you. So, just reach out to anybody, send an email, send a text, like, whatever it takes, just make that first step. And I think that will lead you to the road to recovery that you're seeking.
Well said, Phil. I agree with that. Phil, so they tell people where they can find you and all the things that you're doing.
It's very simple, at Phil Svitek on all things, and putting out various content of all kinds across YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I try to be very, like, I don't know if platform agnostic is the word, but I try to make everything very unique so you don't get the same thing across everything. And overall, yeah, it's meant for creatives to help master mental fortitude. I'm a firm believer in having mental fortitude along with the skills and talent to find the success, because without one or the other, you're not going to get very far, I don't think.
I agree with that. JLJ Media is everywhere, folks. Trust me. We're on every streaming audio service. We're on YouTube, JLJ Media. Like, subscribe, and follow. wherever you see it. I have over 30 shows, anything from Star Wars to soaps to left-handedness, he was on that show, to all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, we have all kinds of great content. I have an insurance podcast. There's all kinds of stuff to help you out, an organizing podcast, everything. So go and subscribe there and take a look and see what we're doing over there. I got some exciting stuff coming up. I have some Christmas stuff coming up, some scripted content on there, and it's coming up. So, check us out. Where can you find me? We're James Lott Jr. is sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. I'm not kidding. I am everywhere. I'm also a life coach. ALottaHelp.com. That's with 2 T's, not one. ALottaHelp.com. I actually have coaching clients. I'm available for coaching. You don't have to live in Los Angeles area. You can be anywhere. You can do it through Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, even phone calls. If you're afraid to see phone calls. Go there for more details on my rates and what I do for what I do. And I'm certified in 4 areas. So we can do that. And please, everyone, be safe, be careful, vote. I'm gonna say because this is timely as this comes out. I just got my ballot yesterday. I'm gonna be voting today. So everybody go out there and you vote. It's very important.
I'm gonna echo that. And in this way, right? We talk about victimhood, and listen, to people who don't vote, you don't get to complain because you threw out your vote. Listen,
Green.
Elections, and this goes across the board, right? I'm not just talking about the presidential one. They go the way they go, right? But if you choose not to participate, that's on you. Now, also, conversely, there's so much talk about voter suppression. If your vote didn't matter, why is there so much talk of voter suppression? So
I agree with that. I just feel like people in my past died so I could vote. So that's why I'm voting. And I'm talking local level all the way up to president. I think your local level is very important. So even if you're like the president, whatever, look at your district attorneys, look at your sheriffs, look at your congressmen, look at your, councilmen, everybody. Look at the laws, the different measures. Do your research. I know it seems boring, but you can't complain when something happens in your own backyard and you're like, how did that happen? So I say that from the local level is very important all the way up. So you should go take a chance and do this. And like I said, I got my ballot. I'm going to do mine today. I'm going to get it out there and do my part because that's what my people before me fought for. So I think it's a privilege to do that.
And also, if you like, you can join me as a poll worker. You can sign up.
You're going to do a poll? You're going to be poll working? That's so funny.
I'm going to do poll working. I'm doing my part.
Good for you, Phil. I'm like, okay, I'll be at home, but I will do my votes. I will vote.
You've done it. You do plenty, James. I'm going
to do a few things, Phil. What are you talking about? Anyway, please stay safe. And I don't care what anybody thinks. Wear a mask. See you next time.